Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Sure ADC podcast, the show about anything and everything. This is Lucas, and let's see what topic we can get into today. We talk about movies, songs, video games, board games, food, books, personality traits, animals, history, anything and everything you can think of. So sit back, relax, because we are just here to have a good time. Today, we have a topic that we haven't talked about in a while, and it is by far time to talk about it again, and that is personality traits. Today, we're talking about agreeable versus antagonistic. Today, I have with me, and you have heard from him before, and that is Jace. How you doing today, Jace?
Hi, I'm great.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on and talking about this very difficult topic.
Yes.
Well, when we did this last time, and I'm pretty sure this was season one when we talked about this. I guess I didn't do any in season two because that's how season two was. But we talked about bubbly versus chill, and it was a really good
Mm.
episode. But I kind of want to go into, I want to do this more. I want to do the personality traits more because that kind of fascinates me. I've always been interested in how people think and why people do what they do and stuff like that. So, this one I feel like is going to be a very interesting topic today. Agreeable versus antagonistic. So, would you say that you are more agreeable or more antagonistic?
I knew you were going to ask this. Um, I would say, in general, I am more agreeable. Um, but given situational circumstances, I can also be antagonistic
Ooh,
sometimes.
that's spicy.
Yeah, if that's the
um,
word you want to use for that.
like, I don't know, when it comes to stuff like that, it's almost like the people that can be agreeable and antagonistic, but they lean more towards agreeable. It's very, I feel like it's very kind of, I don't know, spicy is kind of a good word for it because they're antagonistic about things that they're passionate about. And so, in a
Hmm.
sense, it's just very strange when you see them actually being
Yeah,
like that.
it feels very dramatic because you're like, I know you
Yeah.
one way, but then all of a sudden, this is a different trait that you have that doesn't come to the surface a whole lot, but it does. And so,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely one that I typically don't. I've never enjoyed the concept of, putting yourself in a box and this is my personality. I'm a KFNLLIGMNOP, whatever it is. Um, but I do think it's interesting to take those quizzes and read about um, the just different what that program or what that exam or assessment um, considers a personality. um, if it is interesting at least to read about what um, how they function and how they work with other people, especially if you're trying to understand other people. um,
Yeah.
so even though I don't really enjoy the box format, I do enjoy at least reading about them, and if it helps me better understand people, then that's great.
Yeah. Don't put me in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um Now we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast that we did about personality traits, and you already mentioned it up about, the Enneagram and everything. That's the way you pronounce it, right? Enneagram, right?
I think
Yeah.
so. Enneagram.
What are you? Do you
I
know?
have no
Are
idea.
you
I took
Oh,
it
you
like
don't?
twice. I took it in college, and I don't remember. Um, I think I'm because there are like 16, right?
I
I
think so.
think
I
that
don't know.
I think
I know what
I'm.
I am, and that's about it.
Well, I don't remember the letters, but I remember it. I think it's like a pacifist or something. I'm very much. I don't remember what I am on that one, but do you remember the animal one?
No.
So when Emily and I were in premarital counseling,
Mm-hmm.
we had to take this test, and it broke it down into four animals, which is like a beaver, an otter, a lion, or a golden retriever. And so the lion is your leader, um, engaging, very passionate, proud kind of personality. The beaver
Interesting.
is your logistical, conscientious, very mathematical, logical personality, and your otter is your playful, friendly, just party animal. Um, and
Hmm.
then your golden retriever, which is what I am, is the loyal, caring, kind, people pleaser, that kind of thing. So I'm definitely a golden retriever, which is why I think I'm the pacifist on one of the personality exams out there, because
Hmm.
I'm a people pleaser to a fault.
Yeah. Well, there are so I mean, there's so many different types of personality tests out there, and they'll all I feel like they'll all tell you something different, but not at the same time. Like they
Mm,
all tell you the same thing, but just in a different way.
hmm.
But I think the one in college and the one that I'm talking about, like the one that I know I'm in, only has 9.
Oh,
Did you take that one?
I did not.
Weren't you? Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't you an education? No, you were an art major, weren't
I
you?
was both. Yeah,
Oh, you
it
were
was
an education
both.
major? I
Hmm.
feel like if you were education major, they would have required you to take one, like
We
the
had to take
college
one.
one.
Yeah, we had to take one that the state recommend or state told us we had to take. We
Mm-hmm.
had to pay like $70 for it too.
Oh, jeez.
But it wasn't necessarily a person now. It was, but it was more for how does your personality match up to what the qualities of a teacher need to be. It wasn't necessarily the kind that we typically think of, you know. Um, it was very much a, are you qualified to be a teacher? Are you mentally stable enough to be a teacher? Um, or not kind of exam. It wasn't necessarily a, here's your personality type and here's how you work well with others. Here's how you don't work well, or here's what your low
Yeah,
periods look like. Here's what your high, those kinds of things.
that makes sense, I guess. I mean, they want you to know how to succeed in teaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I I'm looking it up right now, and I did find I think kind of the basic ones. It might be different titles for each one, but um here so number one is the reformer, they're rational, they're self-controlled, they're a perfectionist. That's number one. Two is the
Okay.
helper, they're caring, generous, people pleasing. Oh, you're the helper. You're
Okay,
number
hold
two.
on. So I found a picture too. It's the
Oh, you
16
did.
personality one. And
Oh.
so it breaks it down into 4 types: analysts, diplomats, sentinels, and explorers. And I fall in the category of diplomats, and I'm not pacifist, I'm a protagonist. ENFJ. That's what I
Oh,
am.
interesting.
It's an interesting one.
Interesting.
I really do. If you're into like personality types, I highly recommend taking it.
Hmm.
Just because it is one of those that it has 16 of them, so it doesn't feel as
Boxy.
boxy. But it also, what I really enjoy about it though is, even someone who likes me who doesn't really like the box thing, I enjoyed what it breaks it down into, how do you, or how does this personality trait typically work well, and what kind of environment, what
Mm-hmm.
are some strategies to help you be successful, what are some personalities that you may not mesh well with, or how do you navigate that. So it's really interesting if anybody is interested in going to take that assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any type of personality test is good to take. I mean, whether you want to know about yourself or not or whatever. The one that I took, it has like a how you are. It has a. It puts you in a letter that you are when you're like healthy, and then when you're
Mm.
not healthy it puts you in a different letter, so it's like you're a main this but a wing of this.
Okay, okay.
And so like for me, in the one that I took, I'm a peaceful primarily,
Hmm.
but my I have an 8 wing, which is like a powerful, like a challenger.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of how they do it. Now I don't know exactly if that's what that means, like, oh, if you are in a bad place in your life you're you're powerful, but if you're in a good place in life
Right.
you're peaceful. I don't know if that works,
Right.
because then it's like, well, then what about the people who are naturally powerful?
Yeah.
But no, it is interesting, and it is kind of interesting because I think I timed this well, or for picking who, you know, to talk about this, because you just said you're more agreeable, And I feel like if anything, I'm pretty agreeable. Like I'm pretty chill and everything, but at the
Yeah,
same time, I think I lead more towards antagonistic.
I would agree with that.
I definitely haven't fully, and I don't know what it is. We can kind of dive deep into it, but but
But that's why I really want to make sure that the listeners know that if you take that personality exam, that's wonderful if you want to read about it and better understand, but don't find your identity in just
mm,
that, because human beings are creatures that are much more complicated than one personality type. um, and so consider yourself that this could be a foundation of better understanding yourself, but at the same time exploring other personality traits you may have that may not coincide with that exam result per se.
yeah, yeah, don't put yourself in a box because you don't need to do that. I mean, and these personnel and people, I mean, I feel like people who do take them, sometimes they do just take them to heart and they just are identified as, oh, I am this. And I mean, that's fine to do. I mean, if you feel that strongly in it, like if you feel like that encompasses you as a whole, then yeah. But at the same time, don't be afraid to grow and learn, because you could be one letter when you're 16 and another letter when you're 20.
Exactly.
You are don't be afraid to grow and learn new things and think about things in different ways, because that's how you grow, that's how you learn.
Hmm.
So I guess before we kind of dive deep into everything, even though we haven't started to dive deep already, what is your definition of agreeable? Like, what is just kind of basic agreeable? What does agreeable look like?
I think agreeable, the personality trait of being agreeable, I think really, I mean, generally positivity, I think coincides with an agreeable personality.
Interesting.
Um, I think friendly, I think compassionate,
Hmm.
kind. I don't necessarily think I don't think an agreeable person is necessarily a pushover. I think that you can have an agreeable personality and still stand firm in who you are and what you believe in. Um, but I think in general, an agreeable person will want to be kind to people and want to please people and want to create a very positive atmosphere around them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Correlating agreeableness with positivity, I can see that. I can see that. I
But
mean,
that
so,
does not mean that an antagonistic person wants to hate all the
are
time.
you saying that? No,
That's
just
not
kidding.
what that means. I just think that an agreeable person, it's much more important to them how others feel
Hmm.
than um, than anything else. Like the reason I think that I'm more agreeable than antagonistic is because I am a people pleaser to a fault. I
Hmm.
will not take care of myself to ensure the happiness of other people. And that's a kind of a negative side to being agreeable, is you can be a people pleaser and be have that agreeableness, but you can still stick up for yourself and you can still put your foot
Hmm.
down and things like that. But
Yeah.
um, so not to say that these are mutually exclusive. They're not. Um, but I do think an agreeable person, it is much more on their radar to make sure those around them are happy and content.
Interesting. Interesting. So that is so interesting that you explained it like that, because in my sense of agreeable, um it's not necessarily not caring, but like in my sense of agreeableness is like just not having a particular opinion about it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not necessarily about how I want to make the other person feel. It's about me. I don't want to say not really caring because
Yeah.
that's not true. But
Just
like
more indifferent.
yeah, I'm just indifferent about it. It's just like, and I guess I always just come back to agreeable. I mean, what's the one thing that, agreeableness always just kind of comes around and bites you in the butt? When someone asks you, where do you want to go to eat? It's
Mm.
like, I don't care, where do you want to go to eat? And
Ugh.
they're just like, no, pick something.
Yeah.
um, but in that sense, when someone said, I mean, unless I obviously have an idea of what I want or what I'm interested in, or what I'm feeling in that moment, when someone asks me where I want to eat and I say, I don't care, where do you want to eat? That's not me being agreeable. That's me literally saying I'm indifferent, and
Right.
I will eat wherever you want to eat. In a sense, that is being agreeable, because I mean, you didn't make the choice. And so, in a
But
sense,
do you think it could be twisted though to be like, I'm saying I don't care because is there something in you that's like, this is clearly, it's recognizing that this is clearly more important to you than it is to me. So
mm-hmm,
I don't care. I am indifferent. So you choose, which
mm-hmm,
to me goes back to that. It's almost like a subconscious people pleasing because
mm,
you're not intentionally trying to please them, but you are taking the moment to recognize, oh, this is more important to you than me. I'm just going to take myself off the agenda here and let you decide.
yeah.
So it is a roundabout unintentional way of just letting others have their way. And so
That is
that's
true.
interesting.
I mean, that is true in a sense. I mean, you know, I guess in a sense that makes someone agreeable. But it's
Right.
funny because the person who is doing that, ergo me or whoever,
Hmm.
people like that, they don't see it as that.
No,
And so that's
not at
kind of
all.
fascinating.
And again, that's just a counter argument. I don't think that
Mm,
um any like your personality, I don't think that you would ever think, well, I'm saying I don't care because deep down I probably want to please them. I don't think you'd ever think that. I think
mhm,
to you genuinely just don't care. Like my wife doesn't have a lot of opinions. She really doesn't.
yeah.
Um and so when I ask her things and she doesn't have an opinion, it's hard for me to even be like, how do you not have an opinion? Like what do you want to do? And there are times where she can recognize this is clearly more important to you than me, so you do it. I don't care. You do what makes you content. But there are other times that it's like she doesn't she's not doing it for my happiness. She's doing it because she couldn't care less about the outcome of whatever we are discussing. And so I think there's two sides of the argument there that one could pose, but
Hmm,
yeah. That's
yeah.
interesting that we had different perspectives on that.
Yeah, that is interesting. Um, and we're probably gonna have different perspectives on antagonistic.
Probably.
What? So, what is your definition of antagonistic?
So I'm going to clarify what I don't think it is first. I don't think it's somebody who is looking to create chaos or looking to um I'm wanting to create the
Cause
drama
a
by having
fight.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think that they always want to stir the pot in the sense of just for the sake of stirring it, to create that row, that rise, and that adrenaline, and just to have a different opinion, to have a different opinion. I think an antagonistic personality, that trait in people, is more about not being afraid of conflict or not
Mm-hmm.
being afraid of confrontation. In fact, I think that they welcome it if it means doing the right thing or if something is can be justified,
Mm-hmm.
um, or just not being afraid to call out things that are wrong or things that are done to them that are wrong. Again, just not being hesitant to put that foot down or speak up when it needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, antagonistic is a very negative word.
Yes.
And I could have titled this episode, and we could be talking about agreeable versus disagreeable.
Good
I
versus
mean,
evil.
good versus evil. But
That's not what
with
we're saying.
yeah, I mean that's not. But I mean, but that is a thing. People are gonna. I mean, people are listening. hopefully. Um, and people have a negative connotation to words, to different types of words. Antagonistic is definitely one of them. When someone say, "Oh, they're so antagonistic," I mean, people don't go running around just saying that word, but it has a very negative thought process when you think of that.
Mhm.
Um, and that's not what we're getting at here. Is we're not saying one is good, one is bad. Just like in the last episode, we weren't saying bubbly is good and chill's bad, or chill's good and bubbly's bad. Um, uh, we're like I said, we could be talking about agreeable versus unagreeable or disagreeable or whatever. But going kind of that extra notch with someone who is just, they're not disagreeable, because just they're antagonistic. It's just one of those things where it's the complete opposite of agreeable. It's not just disagreeable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's definitely, and we're not saying with these personality traits, no one is all good or all evil. No one is all agreeable, all antagonistic. Like people, like I said, humans are creatures that are much more complicated than that. And so I think every personality trait can have a positive and negative connotation, right? So like
Hmm.
an agreeable person on the positive side, is very people pleasing and wants to help people and kind and compassionate. But at the same time, the negative connotation with that is they are weak, they are cowards, they are um, not willing to stand up for themselves. They're pushovers. But same for antagonistic. An antagonistic person, the positive side is they are firm. They do have courage. They have the the skill set to stand up for themselves and to confront people when it's necessary. But on the negative side of it, if you do dwell on the negative connotation of antagonism, you would think that they always want to argue. They just can't find any um, positive thing. All they want to do is fight and argue and prove they're right. And that's not what we're saying. There are positives and negatives to I think every personality trait out there. We're
Hmm.
humans, and so we can feel the broadest spectrum of emotion. And so I mean, there's so much room for discussion like we're doing now,
Hmm.
because it's not as simple as just this or that. we're
Oh yeah.
just we're just exploring two of the many, many different traits that could be explored.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I want to do a lot of these, is because there's just so many. This won't be the last one, trust me, but I enjoy talking about this. Um, yeah, so my view of antagonistic is I don't know, I guess it's not too different from yours. It's just, someone who it's not someone who, wants to pick a fight. It's not somebody who looks for trouble or looks for a fight. I mean, I feel like I lean more towards antagonistic, but I definitely don't go around looking for a fight. I try to stay away from people as much as possible.
Mhm.
um, so it's, I definitely am not looking for a fight. Um, but I guess it's just, I will stand up for anyone that I feel like isn't, needs to be stood up for. And I'm not afraid of confrontation. Maybe since I'm getting a little older, Jace knew me in college, and I spoke my mind, and I lost a lot of friends because of it. um,
Yeah.
so it's and I wasn't afraid to speak my mind, but in my old age of turning 29 tomorrow, I definitely have kind of eased up on it a little bit. I don't fully speak my mind, but I do feel like if you are antagonistic in a sense, you do just very much speak your mind, and you're not afraid to just speak your thoughts on something. And maybe that's not it at all, but I feel like that has something to do with it. What's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with that. I just want the listeners to understand that, just like in a story, you typically have a protagonist and an antagonist. And even though we think of antagonist as the villain, not every villain is really evil. And without the antagonist, we wouldn't have a story,
Mm,
typically. So
beautiful.
these people, our world is full of people who are more agreeable or more protagonistic, and they're full of people of and there's antagonist people. Like, we all have to be here for this to work. We
Mm,
all have to coincide and be able to be civil with one another and have compassion for each other, even with our personality differences. So don't take this to heart saying that, like Lucas said, it's not one is better, one is, worse. It's just two different things.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that's a good summary of the different perspectives of the two traits that we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't see antagonistic as negative. I mean, I don't because I am that. So
Well,
it's
and that's
just
funny.
like
That's funny because since you're more relatable, you relate more to that. It's not negative to you. Someone like me who's more agreeable, like, my initial reaction is a little bit of it is that negative connotation, because when you generally think of an antagonist, you think of something negative.
hmm
But because I'm not that kind of person, that is what I think of. And I
yeah.
recognize that. But in recognition of that, my metacognitive brain can break that down and say, okay, why do I think that? What does that say about me? What does that say about other people? And I can tell myself, okay, well, just because there is a worldly negative connotation with that does not mean that is all of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Lucas might call me out if I do something wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean he is hating on me or
Mm-hmm.
is, wishing me ill will. That is not what that means. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I think a lot of people, that negative connotation with antagonistic personalities is, oh, they're out to get me, they're attacking me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they're doing. That might be what some of them doing. Maybe they're on the negative side of their journey, but
Their
maybe they,
journey.
yeah, but generally I like to think, because I'm an agreeable person,
Mm-hmm.
I generally like to think that people aren't like that naturally. um, that I think a lot of people, you know aren't trying to attack you or trying to get at you. They might be coming across that way because you have a personality that does not mesh well with theirs. So of
Mm-hmm.
course you're going to interpret things differently. Like, I'm very sensitive to tone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hypersensitive to tone. So you can say one word to me and I can fixate on the tone of what you said, how you said it, and I will pull together this entire narrative of what issue you had or what I did wrong to make you have that tone.
You're writing a story in your mind, aren't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's how I
Uh,
am. That's my negative side to where I'm at, because I need to work on, even with my own wife, she'll say things at times that, because she's more antagonistic, she'll just call me out on things. And for me, that's like, oh my gosh, you're like attacking me.
you
Like,
hate
you
me.
you hate me. Oh my gosh. And that's not what it is. That's just
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is willing to call you out, and that's their personality. They're going to say those things because that's what's important to them and that's who they are. That's
Yeah.
not an attack on your character or yourself or your personality. It's just a difference that you have to figure out in order to navigate the world in a better way.
Yeah. Well, you have to realize, and you said it beautifully. I mean, you really did, because you have to realize in my life, out of in out of being antagonistic, there has never been one time I've done it out of hate. It's always been out of caring for the person. You know, when they're when maybe they're not doing something that is right, or maybe they and you said it, like I said, you said it beautifully, when they need to be called out, in a sense, and not called out in the sense of judging them, calling out in the sense of, hey, did you know that you did this? I mean, I care about you enough to say it. I If I didn't care about you, I wouldn't say it and let you just go on with your life. And so it's kind of almost in that sense, like, and I know that sounds like, oh, I'm doing it for the better, but
Mhm.
I'm doing it for the better good. Um, but that's kind of what it is. It's just like, I care about you enough to be like, hey, what the heck?
Yeah. And honestly,
And
isn't that you could twist that to say this antagonistic personality is almost when it comes to friendships and calling your friends out on things, it is from that caring and
mm,
compassionate perspective because I care about you. I want you to know this so you can grow and maybe be more reflective on this in the future.
yeah,
My personality, the agreeable, we aren't always even confident enough to do that. We want to please you so bad that we're not willing to call you out on anything.
mm,
So again, that's where this they're just
circle of
different.
life.
It's circle of life. Like it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means at surface value. It's
Yeah,
just yep, they're just different. And I
yeah.
think it also comes down to, and I mean, this is a personal tangent, but I
Hey,
think
personal
that
changes are good.
civility and perspective have been lost a lot these days.
Mm,
Um, just the idea that you can disagree with somebody and not get in a fight,
mm,
not attack each other in personal and harmful ways, um, that can happen. Two people who have completely polar opposite personalities can disagree and still remain calm, collected, and just have an adult conversation.
yeah.
I don't know where we lost it or why we lost it, but I think that's a joy of talking about these traits today. Like these two types of people can coincide. I'm married to one,
Hmm.
and they can be successful, but you have to be able to recognize your own traits and flaws and things that are important to you and values, and as well as have the perspective that other people around you do not have they're not the same,
Mm,
and that's okay.
yeah.
Lucas and I are very different personalities, but we get along. We can have conversations. We can disagree and still remain completely civil and friendly with one another. And why can that not happen? But it's because when you consider people's journeys, they're not at a place where they're okay with that. They're not at a
Yeah.
place of accepting that. They are still very in tune with, the um, I'm not going to say self-centered or selfish because I don't think those are applicable here, but I
Hmm.
do think it's more of a um, I think it is a little bit more tunnel vision
Mm,
of their perspective has not been built yet.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's something else that people today need to realize with um, if you're going to go take a personality exam, that's great. You're like, if you take the one with 16 and you find yours, you read all through it, that's awesome. Learn more about yourself, get in tune with yourself. How are you successful? How are you not successful? But then don't forget that there are 15 others that are not you,
Yeah.
and they are different from you. They have different struggles. They have different things that are important to them. They have different things that they're interested in, and just remember that. And so when you go to the grocery store and the clerk is not being the kindest person, first of all, you don't know what the heck kind of day she's having, and second of all, she probably has a different personality than you. So something that she's doing may not seem rude to her.
Hmm.
That's not rude from her perspective. You just might be very sensitive to that. And so the correct thing to do would just be like, hey, she's got her own things going on. She has her own personality. It's not rubbing well on me, but she's doing her job and I'm buying my groceries and let's just go. There is no reason to create discord when it just comes down to civility and perspective. You know.
Yeah. 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 That
That's my
was,
that's my that's my tangent. I'll stop there.
yeah. I mean, the way you ended that, because it was just, what you said at the end was, I mean, pretty much don't cause drama just to cause drama. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
obviously if someone is being a little bit, more violent or something, then yes. But like if they're just, yeah, yeah,
Well,
that was
and as a
great.
teacher, we see this all the time. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, parents these days, I mean, I would say we have more antagonistic parents than agreeable parents, because when we identify an issue, or we have a concern for a student and we reach out to parents, I would say 7 8 times out of 10 they're not okay with what we're saying. They consider us very unprofessional. They don't think that we're doing our job correctly, and they don't think that their kid is doing that. And it's like, guys, we're not just making this stuff up, you know,
Hmm.
but their reaction is very defensive and very, um, it feels like they're harboring this anger for no reason. Like, we haven't even really discussed the issue, but I'm
Yeah.
calling your kid out. And I mean, there's a load of things to unload there, but it's the same kind of thing of, guys, take a step back and realize that you're dealing with humans who are imperfect and different in and of themselves. And so before you decide to react one way or another, just have a little metacognitive session and realize that you're unique, they're unique, and just remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Welcome to today's yoga session where we meditate on the values of life.
So being an agreeable person, as
Mhm.
you are, what does it feel like when you are interacting with an antagonistic person?
I
Do you have thoughts
100%.
on that?
I do. I think it is 100% situational. Um, at work, I am less agreeable than antagonistic. Uh, so I am much more capable of those antagonistic traits at work. So if I'm dealing with an antagonistic person at work, I'm very willing to say, "Hey, we need to sit down and talk through this. We need to figure this out. Um, what is this disagreement? What is this discord?" Like, I'm very much a let's hash this out.
Hmm.
Um, at home, or amongst the people who I consider close to me, um, an antagonistic person can be very hurtful. Um,
Mm.
and again, not because they did anything wrong, but because I am very sensitive to certain things.
Mm.
Um, Again, going back to my wife and I's premarital counseling, we both had a big session talking about where, because Emily is more of that antagonistic,
Hmm.
recognizing my sensitivity and how she handles situations with me is something that she would need to work on, but also my not being so sensitive to something that she does. And so it's a two-way street where, for antagonistic people with me, I need to remember that they're not attacking me. It's not a personal jab. They're just doing what they got to do or saying what they got to say, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, but it can be very hurtful. But
Hmm.
I've grown a lot over the last few years where I can almost take it a lot better,
Yeah.
because I know who I am a little bit more, and I know the source of where it's coming from a little bit more, because my wife and I have grown a lot, and I've learned that there are things that she does that she does not. It never crosses her mind that that
Hmm.
could have hurt me, because that's not at all what she meant. And
Yeah.
so knowing that and having accepted that now, it takes a little bit of the pain away. I don't necessarily know if
it takes
if it
it takes a
you
little
know
bit of it away.
well, because I don't know, because again, I'm hypersensitive to certain
Mm.
things. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if I will ever get over, and I'm not saying pain as if like I go, throw myself on the bed and weep for hours. It's not that kind of pain, but it is just like oh, that didn't make me
Yeah. That
feel
didn't
that didn't
feel
make me feel
good.
good. But
Yeah.
I get over it a lot quicker. So yes, the quote pain still happens, but I move on from it. I move on from it quickly, and I talk myself out of it, because I'm like, nope, that's not what it is. That's not what
Yeah.
she's doing.
Hmm.
And it works that way with other people too. Like, if I experience somebody who's, you know, quite forward with me, who I don't really know very well, um, I'm able to have that conversation in my head of like, hey, that's their personality. They got things to do. Oh, perfect example. Here we go. So at church, our choir director is a very structured woman. She is very much, we have to get this done before we do this, and then we have to get this on, we have to get there on time. And if you try to interrupt her, like not for any bad reason, and she would love to talk to you, but if you try to interrupt the structured time that she has set,
Mm,
she can, for an agreeable person, it comes across very snippy
and
and
pushy.
very and quite pushy and quite rude.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what she's doing. She has a job to do. She's trying to keep 80 choir members in line and doing what they
Mm-hmm.
need to do, and fixing the things that we need to fix with a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
It's a business. She's trying to make sure it all gets done. So for an agreeable person, that has happened to me before, and it hurt, but again, I moved on from it because I was like, it's not personal. It is not a jab at me. It is just she can't do this conversation right now. And
Mm,
she's great at coming back and saying, hey, sorry about that. What were you wanting to talk about? She's so good at that. But yeah, for an agreeable person, you can have that hurdle of making sure that you're, especially if you're the agreeable version like me, where it's more of the people pleasing and you do care, but it's more for the people around you. um it can, you do have that, you have to have that to navigate, where you have to navigate how you perceive things versus what other people are actually doing.
yeah.
Now for somebody like you who's more of just the indifference,
Mm-hmm.
so channel that in you for a second. How do you feel like that part of you handles antagonistic people?
Antagonistic people. I feel like I reserve myself a lot. I mean, depending on the situation and everything. Like, I mean, in that type of situation, I mean, we've done choirs, we've done shows before.
Oh
We're all
yeah.
around those types of people that they have a job to do. You can't interrupt them. They need to be there, and I respect that. I guess it's more of a respect thing. It's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. I mean, especially since I'm getting older, like, back in the day, I probably would be like, wow, this person's like kind of rude. But like in a sense, I'm just like, oh yeah, let's do it. No, I respect a person that uh can do that in a sense, can just be like, listen, we don't have time for this. And in the end, when they come back to you and say, hey, I'm sorry, we couldn't really talk about that in the moment, but we can talk about it now. That's just the beauty of it right there.
Mhm.
Realizing that you have a thing that you need to accomplish in a timely manner, but then actually, just like you've been talking about this whole time, actually realizing that other people are different than you. Other people value things different than you. And so for
Mhm.
you to come to someone afterwards and be like, "Hey, I respect you enough to be that we can talk about it now." That's
And
just
I didn't forget. That's what's really cool.
exactly. And that's the way that I would feel like I was if I was in any situation like that. Um, you know, I would be the exact same way because I'm able to realize that not everyone's like me and not everyone is like, and I'd be like, hey, that's a great question, let's talk about it later.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you later on it. And I mean, like you said, being a teacher, I feel like most teachers have to be that way. They have to, because
Oh yeah.
to value a person's personality traits, feelings, values, whatever you want to say. I mean, you're on a timely manner when it comes to class,
Mhm.
and whatever the case may be, you need to respect and go back to those and not forget. Like you said, you have to
Right.
remember.
Right.
But that's my thoughts on, as I'm very open. I mean, of course, when it gets to a certain extent, I'm like, okay, you need to calm down, dude.
Yeah.
but like,
So it
but
sounds like I'm mine is the more sensitive to the surroundings, and yours is that indifference kind of establishes a, I kind of see the situation for what it is, and
hmm
now's just not the time. And
yeah,
I think the sensitive person also knows that. It just, when it's met with that kind of shut down mode from the opposing person,
Hmm.
there's a little bit more feeling involved. So what about your antagonistic side? Have you ever had an experience where somebody was hurt because of something
Oh,
that you said or
100%.
did,
Oh, oh, oh,
but not
100%.
clearly
Chase,
not
you know this.
something.
No.
Well, hey, I am simply setting you up for a great explanation. But like not, I know something that you didn't intend, but still something that they took wrong or
Mm.
took very hurtful.
Something that I have to work on still. I'm a very different person than I was 5 years ago,
Mm,
and in college and everything. And uh, I I would say the stuff that I would say because I cared about the person and being blunt. I was always known as the blunt person. Oh, Luke is just really blunt because I mean that's
mm-hmm,
just the way that I am.
mm-hmm,
Um, but and I've worked on that. I've worked on not being as blunt, not saying my opinion, just kind of going with the flow. I don't care. Unless if it involves me, I kind of care a little bit. But if it doesn't involve me, just do whatever you want.
mm-hmm.
This is where the chill personality comes in. But when it comes to and I might even talk to Emily about this. But l- when it comes to reacting to something that I have said that has hurt someone's feelings, but I didn't mean it that way, I feel like I do need to work on a little bit still,
Mm.
because and Emily was probably like this a lot when you first started dating or first marriage or whatever, but like um in our minds, we didn't hurt your feelings. I
Right.
did not hurt your feelings because that was not my intent to hurt your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about that is that when you feel like you haven't hurt someone's feelings, guess what you don't feel? Bad.
You don't really feel sympathetic.
You don't feel sympathetic. You're like, grow up. Like that's
Yeah.
just. I mean,
Oh,
that's. Oh, I'm so
boo.
sorry. Oh, did I hurt your feelings? Like
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't experience the emotions and the thought processes that you are supposed to feel when you hurt someone's feelings when you don't feel like you hurt someone's feelings.
Yes. And
And
that, I think you're hitting a nail on the head there because that is yeah. Hmm.
mhm. You're like, oh, preach, preach
Oh, yeah.
it.
I could go on that for hours, man. Emily and I, when we first got married, we had lots of talks about, um, oh my gosh, I could go on this forever. Literally, I would bring up something that's like, hey, that really didn't, that hurt my feelings.
Hmm.
And she had such a hard time with like,
Mm.
how? Like, how
Yeah.
did that hurt your feelings? Like, it was, how did you perceive it that way? And it has taken
Yeah.
years for me to explain to her my thought process and
Mm.
how my feelings are. That, I mean, now obviously she's like, she can foresee that coming, so she'll word things specifically,
Mm-hmm.
in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way, but
Mm-hmm.
she's also grown in the sense that just like I've grown as not be so sensitive, she has also grown in, she'll call herself out on things before it even happens, or like not
Yeah.
before it happens, but before I even have to say anything.
Yeah.
She'll apologize for it or say, hey, that's not what I meant to, that's not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to
Yep.
do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for sure, there was a long time there where she just couldn't understand how it was perceived that way,
Yeah.
because in her mind, she it was black and white. It was this and that, and that's what I said. But
Mm-hmm.
she had
I said
no
what I said.
idea. And then it hurt even worse that there was
Mm-hmm.
really no apology.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
we had to
Mm-hmm.
work through that of like,
Mm-hmm.
you apologizing doesn't, like, you can apologize for a situation. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to apologize even when you don't think you did it wrong. You can still say, well, hey, I'm sorry that this all happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that this whole situation occurred. Let's fix it in the future. You
Yeah.
don't, I don't know why people think I did nothing wrong. Why would I have to apologize? You don't
Mm.
have to apologize for what you did, because you did do nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't have to belittle someone's feelings just because you don't think you did anything wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what Emily and I have worked through. We've worked through that of, just apologize that it happened.
Yeah.
And I will apologize that it happened. We will both apologize that this situation occurred in the first place
Yeah.
and that we didn't communicate better with each other. It's
Mhm.
it's again that two-way street of let's work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. And
Yeah.
I think it all goes back to that. You can have an agreeable person and this antagonistic person work together, but you have
Well,
to put the effort in, I guess, you know?
yeah. Well, it just comes down to that's when the respect comes in.
Oh, for sure.
Respecting the person in a sense that you can do those next steps
Yeah.
afterwards.
Dare I say you have to drop the self-entitlement? Question mark.
uh,
From either side though, right?
yeah.
Like antagonistic people drop the self-entitlement thinking that you did nothing wrong, but also the sensitive, agreeable people drop your self-entitlement that they deserve to come coddle you and
Hmm.
that they need to come hold your hand. Like you also need to grow up a little bit and be an adult and be able to say things that you need to say. And this is I should have a mirror because I need to be
You can
saying these
always,
things.
yeah, you can always
But
say
but
it, but
again, I'm never gonna accuse one or the other because they both those kind of situations. It's again they
yeah,
both need to work on it, and so
yeah.
yeah.
Really fast. So we talked about how you interact with antagonistic people. We talked how I interact with antagonistic people. What do you
Mm.
do when someone who is agreeable like you? What about that interaction?
We're not very productive.
you
I
and
so
you and Jonathan.
correct. I was about to say we have a mutual friend, and Jonathan and I, who the listeners have heard many
Yes, of
times.
course they know
Um,
Jonathan.
Jonathan and I are close friends. But we are also very similar in many ways. We are both sensitive, so sensitive. Um, and our time is filled with a lot of discussion on how
Mm,
we feel, why we feel it,
mm.
and how to navigate that. We we make up in metacognitive discussion sessions in the time that we could use to just go handle the issue.
Mm.
That sounds so bad, but it really does. I'll have something on my mind, he'll have something on his, and we won't go handle it or find a resolution. But man, we will
We'll just
talk
talk
about
about
it
it.
for hours and what we should do and
Yeah.
what we will do, what we might do, what we might not do.
Mm.
Um, but in a weird way, it's so refreshing
Yeah.
because I'm with somebody who gets it. I'm with somebody who, oh my gosh, they
Mhm.
feel the same thing. They've had situations that are the same. They have the same sensitivities. They have the same words. Like we've even in talking with each other, we've said the exact same thing about two separate situations. And it's
Mm.
like, whoa, dude, like you get it. Like I completely sympathize with you and I understand. But then it's really cool with John and I about I can say, hey, I've actually been in a situation like yours before, and here's what I did and didn't do, and here's what it created,
Mm.
or here's the resolution that happened. And sometimes that helps, sometimes it hinders because there might be something where I'm like, hey, I've had that happen, and you're just gonna have to buck up, which is not helpful, but
Yeah.
it's the truth. But then there are other situations like, hey, this happened to you, well, it happened to me, and here's how I did it, and it went really well, so maybe
Mhm.
try this, and he does the same for me, and so it in a way, just as unproductive as it can be, it can also be quite therapeutic.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually whenever someone comes to me with problems, and maybe this is just, or how they're feeling, and maybe this is just kind of the psychology in me, or, my personality trait of antagonistic, but, I will 100% listen to you. But at the end of the conversation, you better doggone know what I'm going to say to you. So, how do we fix it? What
Oh
do
my
we
gosh.
do to
So,
fix it?
yes. So, Emily, we had to create a phrase because in a marriage, this isn't a marriage setting, but we had to create a phrase because she will listen, but her natural reaction is,
What do we
so
do to fix it?
what are we going to fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And we have a phrase where before I start talking, I have
Yeah.
to tell her, I want you to, what is it? What is the phrase? We found this on Instagram somewhere,
Do you want to be
but she was,
comforted, or do you want to deal with the problem, or
no,
do you
it's
want like a
something like
solution?
that. It's like, do you want
Yeah,
me to comfort you or do you want a solution? And I have to
yeah.
tell her which one I want. Because there are times where I'm like, if you try to give me a solution right now, I'm gonna storm out of here. And I don't want your
But why
solution.
is that? Like, why is that so bad?
Because I think in our minds, the more sensitive, this really should be called like sensitive versus non-sensitive people. But sensitive sensitive
That's another
people,
topic.
yeah, sensitive people like me, the sensitive side of agreeableness is I don't necessarily, it is not a problem worthy of a solution to me. It's still just something that is boggling my mind. So
Wow, that's
don't try to
interesting.
give me a solution
Don't fix
because
me.
all I think about is you just see something wrong. And so as I'm talking to you, all I think about that you're thinking about is a way to fix it. I don't want you to try to fix it. I want you to listen to me and I want
Hmm.
you to sympathize with me and say, yeah, that's not cool or that's not fun. Because that tells me that you're considering my feelings and not just trying to fix a
Hmm.
problem. And
This is.
recognition of
Hmm.
feelings is a big deal for those sensitive people, you know?
Hmm.
There are times though that I will say I need a solution because I'm tired of doing this. Because
Hmm.
again, that negative connotation with agreeable people is that they're wimps and they're pushovers. They'll get to a point where they're tired of it and they will
Hmm.
want those solutions, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing of agreeable people that we didn't discuss is a lot of times agreeable people, if they're not indifferent, they're, you know, I'm talking about the more sensitive ones, they a lot of times bottle up things
Hmm.
and then eventually the bottle gets too full and
Hmm.
it explode and then that's another negative, it's just another negative connotation that kind of can become of
Hmm.
people who don't handle things forwardly or don't handle things when they happen or don't look for solutions. They just try to keep those kind feelings up and running.
Hmm.
um
That's
but yeah.
super interesting. I mean that makes total sense, but like in it's funny because in my mind when someone comes to me and is feeling sad or feeling frustrated or is angry or is hurt or whatever the case may be,
Mm,
you know um like it like I've said, I'll listen to them, but the main goal in my mind is how do we fix it? What do we do for you never to feel this again? Because
right.
in my mind, when something happens, all those years in college, when I did all that and I lost friends and everything because of it.
Mm,
Guess what? I never did again. I never did that again because I did not want to experience it again. I didn't want to feel that again. And so, therefore, I changed the way that I approach things so that I don't feel that way again because I don't
mm,
want to feel that way again. It was bad to me. And so, when I have a problem or when I am hurt or when I'm just, frustrated or whatever, the first thing that I do is I say, okay, so what will make me not experience this again?
right.
And so it's interesting when, and of course, there's times when I'm all like, I just want to vent and I don't care about the solution and,
Mm,
whatever. But that is interesting to me that that aspect of it. And a big thing for me is changing the way that I say things, changing the way that I do things. And
mm,
it just keeps me, I mean, even in the sense of, I feel like, um, you know, saying something to someone, I may not say the exact same way that I used to. I mean, I still will do it with love and everything, but like, I mean, I might still be a little blunt about it, but
yeah.
overall, changing the way that you say something so that because the way that you want to say it is going to hurt their feelings.
Right.
So,
And I think it comes down to a choice too, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
Emily and I have really discovered that, you know, it comes down to that's not how she thinks. So
mm-hmm,
she's not going to understand not wanting a solution. Now, she can choose to recognize that I think differently. So she's going to choose to not always give a solution.
yeah,
She has a solution in her head, but she chose to not say it because
yep,
she knows that that's not what I want or need.
yep,
And but then it also works for me. Like I'm going to choose, you know, maybe I'm not going to complain about this or talk about this because am I wanting a solution? No. Okay, well then maybe I shouldn't complain about it, you know? It's that recognition and choosing to, like you said, you're going to change the way you say things. That's a choice you made based on something that you experienced or went through that you would not like to experience again.
It's very selfish if you
The
think about
same, it kind of, but it can and cannot be
it. Hmm.
because, of course, human beings don't want to experience pain again. But at the same time, if it wasn't for those experiences, you know, sparking the choice to change,
Mm.
you wouldn't be growing.
Yeah.
So if you didn't experience those things, and if I didn't experience the all the things I'm being sensitive to, and then get
Mm.
to that point of I'm done, I'm tired of this. I need to work on myself and change my
Mm.
personality a little bit because I'm tired of feeling this way, then you don't grow. If you
Mm.
don't experience those things, you become stagnant and just the same person, and I would hope with your friends and your loved ones that when you things happen and when you grow, just like Emily and I have grown in our marriage, we don't struggle with these things as much as we did when we first got married. And that should be the goal. That's a reflection of our growth
Yeah.
from both sides. I don't That's why, to bring this full circle, that is why you don't identify with what this personality is that you got on the internet. You
Mm.
realize that, okay, that might help you understand yourself better. It may have some correlations, it may have things that are not so accurate, but you still continue to grow and change. You don't keep yourself in that identity for your whole life, because then you're never going to be different. You're never going to be able to make different relationships and connections with people and potentially grow into a much better version of yourself
Mm.
if you don't allow yourself to change, and
Yeah.
to make those decisions to do life differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we have to wrap it up, but I want to say one more thing. I also just like to poke people's buttons.
Yeah,
I just
you
find
do
that
like
fun.
doing that.
I just find it fun. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but it
And to
is
agreeable people, you're the bane of our
it is
existence.
so much fun because when you say something and I'm all like, "Oh, really?
Yeah,
Ooh, interesting," and then I just
yeah,
start poking, boop boop boop
yeah.
boop boop boop. It's so
And see,
fun.
that is very much an antagonistic, because
Oh, it's so much
I
fun.
I find the buttons, and then I make sure I stay away from those buttons at all costs.
Oh, and I just poke. I just poke it. I just poke
Mm.
the button. Oh man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Jace. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I hope
Any,
the listeners enjoy this one.
I think. I mean, we kind of deviated a little bit, but at the same time, we didn't. It was very much still an agreeable, antagonistic, way of viewing things. Whether it be, I mean, yeah, it's just,
Whether it
it's
be indifference or sensitivity, or whether it be
exactly.
poking the bear, or
Well,
just willing to stand up for yourself. There's just
Well,
differences.
I love John. He's one of my bestest friends, and one of my favorite things to do is push his buttons, which So, and
What
he
a
knows.
great illustration of Jason Lucas. We're just gonna go in the forest and we see a bear, right? And Jace runs away from the bear, but Lucas is like, I'm gonna get a stick.
I'm gonna get a
I
stick
might
and
get a
poke
stick
it.
and poke the bear. That's
Oh
agreeable
man.
and antagonistic for you right there.
There you go, folks. So stay agreeable or don't. No, but no. Thank you for coming on the show, Jace. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening, you listeners out there. Shows are every 2 weeks on Thursday. Make sure you go follow me on Facebook if you haven't done it already. Also, you can also find me on YouTube. So go over and subscribe to me there. I don't have a lot of episodes on there yet, but I am planning on it after my life stops being crazy. So thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. And remember, you don't care.